One.
Hey everybody, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us once again on Dojo Live, weekly talks with experts like you. My name is Kim Lantis, and I'm joining you from Nearsoft's office in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico, joined by my fellow Nearsoftians, Carlos Ponce in our Mexico City office. Hey Carlos.
Hey, Kim.
And Jorge Simons in Hermosillo with me. Hi Jorge. Perfect. So, talking about experts, today we do truly have an expert for you, a man with more than 30 years of experience in the travel industry. It's my pleasure to introduce you to CEO of TripBam, Steve Reynolds. Hey, Steve, welcome to Dojo Live.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, thank you. So, Steve, where do you find yourself today? I understand you're at a conference.
Yeah, I am. I'm in Toronto, Canada, speaking at a conference this afternoon. It's the Global Business Travel Association, and we're going to be talking about some technology-related stuff specific to hotels to the group.
Perfect. Well, good for you. You can use us as a little practice run. Thank you again for your time today. Before we get more into the travel industry, please, Steve, more about yourself and this 30 plus years of experience?
Sure. So I got a computer science degree from a college, Baylor University in Waco. I worked for Texas Instruments in their defense system and electronics group. I was doing missile guidance systems for a while. From there, I went and got an MBA. And my first assignment, well, I was a consultant with Ernst & Young. It was Ernst & Winnie at the time. My first assignment was a travel agency called LifeGo Travel. And the owner got really tired of paying our hourly rate, and he approached us and said, "Hey, you want to start a company?" And we said, "Okay, what the heck?" So I left there. I only lasted about 6 months at Ernst & Young before we started a company called CTI. And we did a bunch of technology for the corporate travel space. This was going on 25 years ago. Hired by American Express. I spent a couple of years with Amex, and then I drove up to Dallas and started up a similar company called Travel Technologies Group, which created a whole bunch of different technology for the travel industry: online booking tools, mid-office ticketing systems, reporting solutions, you name it. That merged with a couple of other companies, and we created a company that really specialized in the online travel space. We had customers like Expedia, Priceline, American Airlines, Continental, and so on, where we did all the backroom processing for the major OTAs. That was a company called TRX. That company IPO'd in '03. I did a stint as a consultant for a period of time, and then got into a couple of other ventures, and then started up this company, TripBam, about 4 years ago.
Very cool. So, can you tell us more about TripBam? It's interesting because, like, you see these behind the scene companies, right? Because you mentioned Expedia was your client, and then when I think of travel and travel booking, I think of Expedia being like, the forefront of these things, and it's really cool to see um, what goes on behind the scenes and what's actually behind that. And I understand that TripBam does some of that, but what makes it different from other hotel booking sites?
So TripBam is not a hotel booking site.
My apologies.
TripBam, yeah, yeah, it's a common comment. TripBam is a system that makes your hotel reservation better. Corporations, consumers go off and book the best rate that they can, but what most people don't realize is hotel rates fluctuate rather dramatically, in some cases multiple times per day. And so what we do is we got your back. We're going to check the rate periodically throughout the day, not only at the hotel that you booked, but any other hotel that you think you want to keep an eye on. So for example, I'm here in Toronto. The Intercontinental Hotel is the conference hotel. We're checking rates there every single day, as well as the Fairmont across the street, as well as quite a few others nearby. And then when we find a rate that drops below a certain dollar amount, firing off notifications to folks that subscribe to our service so they can take advantage of those discounts.
So what would that look like in the sense of penalties? Because if I already have my booking or my reservation, or what if I have like a week long trip and I've been in said hotel for 2 days, and then suddenly, hey, book now across the street for the remaining 5 days and save yourself $400. How does that work?
Right. So if you have a non-refundable hotel, we're probably not going to be able to help you out. You're sort of stuck. But what most consumers don't realize is that if you take the flexible rate, one that you can cancel, the rate is going to drop significantly between the time you book and the time you check in. And that's probably our biggest challenge. It's just educating the consumer that you want to book a flexible rate. Don't get locked in to whatever rate that's enticing at the moment, because they will come down. The hotel industry at large drops their rates periodically between the time you book and the time you check in. And we're the ones that keep an eye on all that to make sure you get the discounts. And we can typically save you, we'll find savings of roughly about $100 on roughly 40% of the reservations we process.
Yeah, I can think of better things to spend $100 on than a hotel room.
Absolutely.
Very, very cool. So tell us about this, of all this experience you have, this history behind TripBam. Seems like a complicated process, and I know that there's a lot of hurdles to go through when building a travel app or a travel service. Can you tell us about some of those hurdles and how to go about resolving them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, a lot of folks ask me, why did the TripBam product just sort of evolve at this point in time? I mean, it seems like a fairly simple idea. Why wasn't it built prior? And I think the answer to that is travel is extremely complex behind the scenes. The right kind of content around the hotels that you want shopped, and knowing the star ratings and the quality and the travel advisory, the TripAdvisor scores and so on. You have to aggregate all that, which can be tricky. Secondarily, you have to have access to all the rates and know when they drop. And for a booking site, that can be a very expensive proposition to have access to those. So we've kind of got some secret sauce that enables us to access those rates based on that 25 years of experience. I just know where to go and how to get connected to them. And we actually shop now across multiple content sources for rates. We just don't go to one, we go to several. It's just a tricky piece of technology, and a lot of it is just experience and knowing who to talk to and how to get connected, to keep your cost reasonable so you can provide a service to your customers that they can afford.
So networking. So your first element of your secret sauce is go to as many conferences and meet as many people as you can.
Secret is just be in the business for about 30 years and know a lot of people.
Oh no!
So I don't have to.
This is the startup's heart.
That's right. And we've had a lot of, there's companies that have popped up that try to compete with us, and for a variety of different reasons, they just can't. And I think a lot of it is just that it's that we just know how to do this. We've been doing it for so long. We know the complexity that it takes. The other thing in the travel industry in general, the source of data is very poor. So for example, when you actually get the reservation for a traveler, it's really difficult to know what rate they're paying at a hotel. It's hard to know what the bed type is, the room type, the amenities that are included, and so on. You have to go and glean all that out of these hieroglyphics, we call it, and then merge it with other content sources to really provide a service that makes sense for that traveler.
Why is it so complicated and tricky? I think you mentioned during our previous talk that a lot of this data that you delve into is based off a system that was built in the 40s. So why hasn't it, we're coming up almost on 100 years later, 80 years later. Why hasn't somebody figured out how to simplify this? Why hasn't it changed?
That's a really good question. There are all kinds of theories as to why it's sort of stuck. But the average, if you look over the shoulder of a travel agent, it's like you're on a time warp and you just went back to the 40s, 50s, 60s. They're all built on a system, Sabre, Travelport, WorldSpan, and so on, are systems that were built years ago, and most of them, if not all of them, have not been rewritten. They're anything that the average user would be compelled to use today. It's hieroglyphics on the screen. It really is like going back, to the 50s or 60s. And they haven't changed much at all. Over my entire career, those systems are pretty much exactly the same as they were today. So that's one big obstacle. You got to understand what you're connecting to and the data that's being passed. The third is just getting connected. They're very closed systems. You have to sign very onerous contractual agreements to get access. You have to pay fees to get access. And then once you get connected, you're going to be very frustrated with the API they provide because it's something else that's pretty legacy. The API is probably from the 80s. Whereas the basic systems from the 40s, the APIs from the 80s, and most programmers throw their hands up and like, this is just crazy. Why are we doing this?
I have a quick question, if I may, and something that I'm curious about is you used a term that I'm still trying to figure out or to understand better. When you say corral open bookings, okay, how does that contribute an increase to the increase of traveler compliance?
Okay, I guess you got that from our website.
Yes.
So in the corporate travel space, large corporations, IBM, Coca-Cola, Exxon, whatever you want to call it, probably anywhere from 30 to 40% of the hotel reservations they make are not made through the proper channel. They're made by the traveler just going online to Hilton.com, Marriott.com, Expedia, what have you. Call those open bookings. They're not through the travel agency, which is the usually the channel of choice. So we want to figure out a way to get those travelers access and get a system, because when they do that, they're not taking advantage of any negotiated discounts that company has obtained. They're booking a hotel, they think they're getting a good deal when there could be a hotel across the street that has a negotiated rate that's significantly better than what they just booked. These are very reluctant to put policies in place that require travelers to book, through whatever channel, that they have available. They seem to allow travelers to go, off the ranch a little bit. What we do in that situation is we send automatic offers, hotel offers to travelers to try and get them to book in channel for information if they've already booked, which enables us to start the search process to find a better deal. We will find a better deal across the street if they didn't book the company preferred hotel and at the company preferred rate. And then we send them an email that says, hey, Mr. Traveler, you booked the wrong hotel. You're overpaying by $200. Click this button in the email and everything will be fixed. You just have to click the button and the reservation will get changed. We'll update the reservation and we'll move them from Hotel A to Hotel B, and they'll save the company $200.
So have you come up against trust, like, and as far as like your user experience, your user interface, like how have you guys, with all the scams and all the phishing and things that go on, how did you get over that hump of, is this legit? Do I really click here? Was that something you had to confront?
That's why predominantly B2B, we're corporate. And the reason for that is we have no user interface. The only interaction a traveler has on the corporate side is their hotel reservations make their way to us automatically. We've integrated with every major travel agency on the planet. I can get a reservation for anywhere that those are booked. Once I get it, the only thing that the traveler is going to see is if we find a lower rate is an email. Like it's coming from the company or from the travel agency that's servicing that company. And then the traveler in that email, all they have to do is click a button that says yes or no. Either I'll take the lower rate or don't touch my reservation. I want to stay where I am. That's it. It's a lot simpler. On the consumer side, it's all about the interface. I mean, you've got to have something that's very intuitive. The traveler, you want them to be sticky. You don't want to be confused, and all that. And that's a hard thing to accomplish, especially in what we're doing, where we're trying to educate you on, hey, we found a better deal. Click here and we'll change it for you. And there's just a lot of, sort of trust that you have to establish before you do that.
There seems to be like two phases for like an emerging company or a startup. One is like the technical side of things, which is building something with this old legacy systems, and then the consumer side of things. And we were talking like offline like 10 minutes ago, and you said something that really popped up to me, which was that you need like $100 million just like for brand awareness. Can you like clarify a bit of that? I was really thrown out by the sum of it.
So let's say you have the greatest hotel booking website on the planet. Companies like Hipmunk, a great UI, that they didn't make it. And you try and figure out, why did they not make it? They had a great user interface. They had some very loyal fans. They had a cute logo and all that to use. It's just the traveling consumer is very tied to the major brands that are out there today, the Expedias, the Pricelines, the Booking.coms, and so on, especially when it comes to hotels. It's not about the interface in those situations. It's more about the perception that those websites have the best rates available. They have better content than anybody else. Ton of money to get that perception out in the market. If you get that perception, you don't have to have a great UI. Your site and sticky to your site. And that's what they've all done. For example, I mean, Trivago spent hundreds of millions of dollars over a very long period of time to get a large number of users with the perception that they've got the best rates. And in reality, they don't. But ask the average consumer, they're going to tell you they do. It's kind of like Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines has done the same thing. Spent a ton of money. Everybody thinks Southwest has great rates, and they're in a lot of cases the highest airline in many of the markets they serve. They don't allow price comparison, so you really don't know.
There seems to be like I guess when I talk to startups or emerging companies, most of the they put all the bet in having like the best service for the user or the end user. Like they can easily buy different kinds of packages or have heavily discounted things, but this goes against what you're saying a bit, and I would like to know why they don't know that. Like they should maybe invest that time in ads or something like that. So where does that leave like good UI or good user experience then?
That's the problem. You could have a great UI, you could have great content, and then you got to add the added hurdle is getting travelers and consumers to trust your brand and aware of your brand. And that's where it takes, the $100 million to break into the leisure space, especially in the US market. You're going to have to spend millions of dollars and be comfortable losing them for a long period of time. If you can break through and actually get those users on your site, and actually consuming, then yeah, eventually you'll get an exit where you'll get a return on your money. But it's a big gamble. It's a huge gamble. And that's why, when I started TripBam, I thought, all right, I've been doing corporate for 25 years. I'm going to do something on the consumer side. It didn't take me very long to realize in the space. So we pivoted to corporate, and we haven't looked back. I mean, so we still have a website up that consumers can use. We have about 10,000 active users on the site. We make a little money off of it, but 99% of our revenue is coming from the corporate B2B side.
There seems to be some miracle companies, like I don't know if this would include the travel industry, but sort of like Airbnb, which have been very successful doing like localized marketing, which makes sense when I hear you need a lot of brand awareness. And they started out really small in like a section of let's say California or New York, and then they moved around the globe, but they still kept the same like guerrilla marketing strategy. Is that one of the ways to go? I mean, it's expensive, but it seems to have worked.
Yeah, I think they did. It's a combination of several things. One is, for example, what we do. We're not a booking site. We improve your booking, and it's a niche of the market that is underserved. So we're different from that perspective. So I don't have to spend millions of dollars to try and break into the competition because we're creating our own market space. Same thing with Airbnb. They had content not in your OTAs. The Expedias don't sell Airbnb. It's a new niche, it's a new space, and so the guerrilla marketing works. You can get away with much less marketing spend than if you're just trying to compete with the Expedia with the same content as Expedia. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. So I guess the question shifts to: is the travel industry wide or big enough to find new niches? Is innovation then a part of new startups gaining access to those spaces?
There's lots of different new technology coming out as far as for flight disruption and handling changes to forecast, when a flight could be delayed, and applying some AI technology there. Virtual payment is another space that's getting quite a bit of attention recently. Niches there. Now, can they turn into an Expedia or a Priceline or something huge like an American Express? Maybe, maybe not. But you can make quite a bit of money and do really well. You're probably not going to hit a grand slam, but you can hit a few home runs along the way. So I guess in my entrepreneurial career, this is my fourth startup. I've had successful exits in the past, and all of them, in my opinion, have made money. Did I hit the grand slam? No. I mean, I'm not a billionaire, but I've done pretty well. And so I would think that in the niche, either on the corporate side or on the leisure side that's underserved, some tech, and get it out there and make some money, and it'll probably get acquired by one of the big boys eventually down the road.
The big
Kim, I'm sorry, Kim. I'd like to jump in real quick for a little announcement. And for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions for Steve, please, you can do so. Let me turn on my, you know how it is, Kim, right? The my high-tech screen sharing device. Hold on. Let me click it. Here it is. Zip. There it is. This is my high-tech screen sharing device. Just send your questions on Twitter at DojoLIVE. Just go there. You know how to do it. Send us your questions. We'll read them back to Steve, and he'll respond right here during the broadcast, or maybe afterwards when we upload the episode to the website. With this being said, DojoLIVE at DojoLIVE. Then back to you, Kim. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Carlos. Cool. So I like this idea of niches, and I think that's a good in point. Because you think $100 million investment, there's no way to take out this monopoly. But I like your point of like figure out what's underserved and figure out how to work around that. And I think that's a really savvy piece of advice for those. I mean, the travel industry is a huge industry, and I have the understanding, and perhaps you could verify this, even when there's economic downturns and things, it's one of those industries that's always kind of stood strong. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, I remember I've had several travel-related companies during, economic downturns. Probably the best story I have is we were doing one that was processing probably roughly 80% of the reservations in the corporate travel space. We were doing ticketing, quality control, all kinds of creative things for travel agencies. And then after 9/11, we had our own data server at the time. It was before cloud-based and whatever. Virtually everybody stopped traveling for a fairly good period of time, and that was a scary time. I mean, we thought we're going to go belly up. But fortunately, travel bounces back quickly. It stopped for about 2 weeks, but then it came back, and then it came back with a vengeance. We were setting new records within a month. But yeah, I mean, when you're looking at a data center that's costing you, quite a bit of money, and all the lights stop flickering, all of a sudden, you can get a little bit of a panic. So it's not 100% recession-proof or, terrorist attack-proof, but it's very, very resilient. And it is a huge market. What people don't realize is the corporate travel space is as big as the leisure side. And if you add it all up, you're probably looking at well over $1 trillion market, combined. So there's plenty of opportunity to make money. You just got to go find it.
The corporate travel space, meaning I'm traveling on business.
Right? I'm a
rather
business
than
traveler.
taking.
That's right. That's right. And it bleeds over. I mean, there's people using Expedia for business and such.
Right.
So that we call that kind of the small market, but that mid and large corporate market is huge. They are spending so much money on air and hotel and car and meals and everything else. There's plenty of opportunity.
Right, and that's the niche that TripBEM specifically targets. Then is the corporate side rather than the leisure side.
That's right. Today,
Okay.
we do have aspirations to get back on the consumer side at some point, but as most companies, you tend to follow the money when you're in startup mode.
Right.
The corporation started writing checks and were willing to give us a decent return. So that's where we pivoted, and we haven't looked back. Just to give you a sense of the volume that we're doing now, we've only been around now for about 3.5 years, but we serve about 1,600 companies. We're going to process close to 10 million reservations. We do about 200,000 reservations every single day.
Wow.
We serve the top 20 travel agencies around the globe. We've got probably 25 of the Fortune 100 using the system. So it's gotten really big in a hurry.
That's really cool, and it's neat that everybody's about saving money, right? So, like, what would be the ROI, for example, of the companies who invest in TripBEM? Like, did you say like what I have to pay to use the service, but what I'm saving in my hotel?
So
It's not just hotel,
minimum
right? Flights and everything else.
No. We just do hotel.
Okay.
That's all we do. The challenge on the airfare side is in the U.S. at least you've got a $200 change fee. That sort of knocks out the opportunity for some savings. But on the hotel side, most of the corporations, the minimum ROI that we target is 400%. We have some clients that are well over 1,000% return on investment.
Wow.
So for every dollar they spend, they save 10. It's crazy how much money you could save if you just shop the hotels in a smart way.
And your corporations, do they from all sizes? I mean, somebody who's looking for 250 employees all the way up to.
Yeah, so for the small to mid market, they tend to buy the product through their travel agency. So we establish the travel agencies as a reseller of the service. When it's the large market, they can either get it through the agency or they buy that direct. A lot of the larger companies want to own the technology and they want to stay independent of the travel agency, so they buy direct. But still, I mean, I'd say, half our revenue is from the large corporate market where they have bought direct. The other half is through the travel agency market, where those companies are buying it through the agency.
Very cool. Thank you.
I got one last question on my side. Again, on the consumer side of things, it's just something I've been reading about and hearing about from many people. Is that people who travel for leisure are like shifting away from I want the cheapest price to the best experience. And I don't know if that's something you agree on. Basically, what they're saying is through like digital travel concierge and the possibility of choosing your own kind of vacation and the more possibilities you give the person, it's better than giving them the best price. Is that a true trend, or am I just reading? Am I like locked in an echo chamber?
Yeah, I don't think that's a new trend. I think that's been around forever. I mean, I'll pay more for an enhanced experience, and it's always been that way. It's just how do I know that this offering is going to give me a better experience than that one over there? Because they both look great on the web. They both got great reviews. They've got great pictures. It looks really well. I'm looking for advice and expertise. That's typically where kind of the traditional travel agent comes into play. They've been there. They've done that. I know your personality. I know what you like to do. This is what I would recommend for your trip and where you ought to go. That's the niche that the travel agent has sort of carved out, is that destination expertise that you're really not going to get on a website. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It seems like it's the same thing, just with a digital fresh coat of paint, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think the travel agency is learning to survive, and it's by providing that destination expertise. It's if I want to go to Mexico City, I want to talk to somebody that actually lives in Mexico City, and can sort of get me the right perspective of where to go and what to do. I don't want to just kind of look at 100 different websites, with just a bunch of content that's probably gotten stale over time.
So if that's not it, like the new trends, what would be some of the new trends facing like B2C companies or consumers? What's on your mind about that?
Yeah, a lot of it is just making the experience more seamless. I was telling you packages of the air, the hotel, the car if needed, and so on. But a lot of consumers don't want the package. I want to pick and choose the components that I put into my trip. Because when you're buying a package, they're heavily biased towards whoever's paying the most commission to get their way into the package, right? So those don't tend to work very well. And when it comes to car, I don't want a car anymore. I'm going to do a shared ride experience. I'm going to do Uber or Lyft or something similar, wherever I go. So it's really more about if I have a flight disruption. So for example, I just went to Italy just recently. Our luggage was lost and it was a horrible experience. Nobody knew where our luggage was. We didn't have it for 3 days. It was just kind of a fiasco. And then coming back, the flight back from Rome was canceled. Stand in the line for 3 hours, or at least they wanted me to stand in the line for 3 hours to get it changed, and I refused. So just being able to handle those situations more effectively, with using technology, just seems like a no-brainer. Why couldn't they put something on my luggage so they could track it, from Dallas, Texas, They just didn't, and so my luggage was lost for 3 days. This makes no sense to me. So you would hope somebody would do something to solve that problem. And then same thing on the flight back. I mean, why wasn't I automatically changed to the next flight out rather than having to wait in a line for 3 hours? There's no reason why that couldn't have happened, but it didn't. Person to make that occur.
Maybe that's a new niche for some brave new company to go in.
Yeah, there's several out
You
there.
heard it on DojoLIVE first, folks. Luggage trackers.
Flight changers, it is.
Something cheap that you can stick on my stupid bag so you don't lose it would be awesome.
You can track it on your cell phone. Wait a second, I'm headed to London. That blip's going to Paris.
That's exactly right. I just want to know that it made it on the plane.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
No, that's really good. We could track our pets. We should be able to track our luggage. They don't move, really. At least not on their own.
You reminded me of something that always happens to me. That is basically they oversell the flights, and then they offer me like a couple $100, sorry, to stay the night in whatever airport I'm in. But I'm always traveling for a conference or something like that, so I can't really do that unless I miss one of the days of the conference. So my question is, why do they like sell every single plane seat plus more? Like, why do they do that? Is there like a technical explanation for that? I know it might be an unfair question because it's about airlines, but do you know something about that? Like, save us, please.
Yeah, insights are appreciated.
It's not a technical issue. It's a statistical issue. You know, when you have a 20-25% no-show factor on flights, you know, you're going to have a whole bunch of seats sitting empty. So rather than refund those tickets and whatever else, for whatever reason that those guys just don't make it to the plane, you know, let's go sell them to somebody that do. And so that's what they oversell them. And usually that, you know, most of the airlines are really good at sort of predicting, forecasting requirements and who's going to show up and who's not. And all that. They call it flight firming, and they do it typically 24 to 48 hours out, sort of thing. And most of the time it works really well. But what happens is, you know, when you have, like now today, supply starts to strip the capacity, you're just going to have situations where they're going to try and buy your seat, or you're not going to be able to get on the plane because they oversold it. I haven't had that happen in a long time, to me personally. I've heard where they've made announcements at the gate for volunteers, that sort of thing. But for the most part, that really doesn't occur, at least to me. You know, at all. I'm trying to think of the last time that happened, and I can't think of it. So, you know, maybe Jorge, that was just something they've targeted you as, you know.
Yeah, they didn't like you personally, Jorge.
Or maybe they think I'm a nice guy and I'm just unlucky.
Yeah. He looks like a nice guy. Go with him.
Yeah. Anyway,
so 20 to 25% of people who book a flight don't show up.
That was the statistic I heard. I don't know if that's still the case today. Maybe it's a lot less with the you know, cancellation policies or whatever else. But it was a surprisingly high number of folks that reserve seats, pay for seats, book seats, whatever, you know, don't actually show up for the flight. So they oversell.
And what about hotel rooms?
You know, it's even worse for hotel rooms. Yeah, it's even worse. I mean, you get a lot of no-shows. Now, there are cancellation policies that if you don't show, you're going to end up paying one night stay. In a lot of cases, you'll pay, you know, the whole entire, you know, booking is non-refundable and so on to try and alleviate that problem. But hotels don't have the $200 change fee. In a lot of cases, you can book, and you know, the travelers aren't going to show up. Same thing with car rentals. Car rentals are the exact same way. You get a lot of folks that book cars and then never pick up the car. So they oversell them all the time, just to deal with that issue.
Right, makes sense.
Steve, I'd like to ask you one more question. We still have time for one more. And you just mentioned something that happened to you in your trip to Italy, and something, you know, regarding the loss of your baggage and things like that. So these are really headaches. So in that sense, in order to avoid that, or in order to deal with this, and what sort of advice would you give travel agents or travel managers in the context of engaging with TripBAM?
Well, since we don't deal with flights, you know, or baggage at all, there's really no issues there. I mean, when it comes to TripBAM, what's funny is, you know, how disruptive do you want to be to the corporate traveler? So let's say you booked your trip, you know, and you're going to the States. Let's say you're going to Dallas, Texas, and you think you found a great hotel, and then all of a sudden you get an email that says, hey, you know, that you could save the company $200 across the street. You know, as a traveler, how would you feel about that? Would you feel like the company's overstepping? Is that outside the culture of the company? You know, what have you? My answer to that is, look, you know, all that's great, but we're talking $200. And we're talking about a hotel that's just the same quality or better, and it's across the street. It's not like we're asking them to go way downscale into a motel and drive 5 miles to get to it. And in my opinion, you know, travelers need a little bit of dose of reality that, you know I'm all about experience and millennials and all that, and having, you know, kind of happy travelers on the road. But at the end of the day, all that costs money.
Mhm.
So you can just save, if you can save 20 to 25% on your hotel spend by getting the traveler to stay in the right hotel, I don't know why every company on the planet doesn't do it.
So who makes with TripM? Who's then is making the ultimate decision? It's the person whose name is on the reservation, or the office manager, or the person who made the booking.
It depends. So we have some companies where we send it to the traveler, and so if you're on the reservation, you get to decide.
Okay.
However, we have some companies very frustrated by that because travelers tend to only accept about 20 to 25% of the time. Most of it's loyalty points. You know, they want their points. But so when that happens, a lot of CFOs get mad and they say, okay, forget it. We're going to take the decision out of the traveler's hands. And it goes to someone within the company, and they decide, you know, whether Kimberly's going to move from the Fairmont over to the Intercontinental, $200. And you just
And then
get
they
a
would
revised
just
itinerary.
they would just email you, hey Steve, by the way, here's your new booking.
They try and do it in a nice way, but that's
Right,
what happens. Yeah, congratulations, you saved the company $200. You know, way to go.
So when
And
you're
here's your new reservation.
talking about that company culture, is that something that you, TripM, take into consideration when you're deciding which corporations to target? Like, for example, Nearsoft we're a very flat organization. All of us are very used to autonomy, and I would anticipate that our acceptance rate as individuals will be much higher than that 25%. So is that something you take into consideration when you're looking at which corporations to reach out to?
Yeah, so no, but I would bet your company would be terrible at acceptance rate, just
Oh,
because
really?
we have other companies that sort of fit that profile, and they tend to just not accept. But the large corporates are really, there's multiple cultures within a large corporation. You have certain departments, certain divisions that will have high acceptance. You'll have others that'll have low. So you really can't pigeonhole a company into one bucket or another. And cultures change. You know, you get a new CEO coming on board, and it's all about cost savings. Guess what? Different tomorrow. And if it's not, those individuals are going to be gone. So, you know, we
It's really
cannot
about changing
predict.
that mindset of it's not my money, so oh well. It's easier for me just to headed where I'm gonna go
and get your points so that you can take the family on vacation to Hawaii next year.
right.
So, Kim, do you want to do the wrap up?
Sure. I guess we really are coming to the end of our hour, aren't we? I don't know, Jorge, did you have any other questions that you'd like to ask, or Steve, any final words of wisdom for us out there?
I'm
So,
okay.
Jorge,
You
you
can
go
share the personal experience. No, whatever insight you want to share, I think is more valuable than a question. Go ahead.
I mean, I think we've been kind of all over the place as far as topics that we've touched on. However, if the audience is folks thinking about creating new solutions for the travel industry, said some things that have probably scared you off a little bit, but I would still give it a try. You know, so for example, there's a company in California called Seat Boost that when you're sitting at the gate, you can participate in an auction for a first class seat.
Oh, that's fun.
You know, basically through your mobile phone. It creates more money for the airline. It's kind of a fun experience, and when you're the winner, your phone starts ringing, and everybody knows you're the guy that got the first class seat. You know, it's stuff like that. It's bringing creativity to the travel process, making it easier, making it more fun. I mean, you'll survive, you'll make money, you'll do well. You probably won't be Expedia or Priceline or Booking.com, but it's such a huge market. You don't have to be, and still make a lot of money if that's your motivation.
A small slice of the pie is more than enough.
That's right, and it's a really big pie.
Hmm. Thank you very much.
So.
Steve, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a very busy man. And Carlos, if people want to know more about how they can reach out to Steve, where should they go?
They should go to, first of all, to DojoLIVE, because this episode is going to be in there, and all the info regarding TripBAM, and of course, Steve is all going to be in there, and specifically in our past episodes. That's where it's going to be uploaded, so they can find all the information about Steve and his company, TripBAM. It's going to be in the right in there. And I'd like to take advantage, before we go, I'd like to take advantage of Steve. Will be I just want to show you something that we'll be sending you as a little token of appreciation, something to remember us by. It's a couple of items, so I'm just taking it out of the box, and it's a cup of DojoLIVE.
Ah, very nice.
On it. And also,
I'm a big
Huh?
coffee drinker.
Perfect.
I'm a big coffee drinker.
Excellent, and I hope that you like this as well. This is oops. This is a little USB drive with the DojoLIVE logo as well. So
okay.
we'll be sending this to you by FedEx. We cannot email it to you, unfortunately, but I just thought I would mention this. You'll be getting this soon, and as a way to say thank you. And with that being said, that's all on my end, Kim.
Yes.
And Jorge,
Steve,
thank you so much.
The proper website for people interested in TripBAM is at simplytripbam.com.
That's the one. Yep.
Perfect. And again, thank you so much for your time today, and the best of luck as you're speaking endeavors at the conference that you happen to be at. And
All right. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it, guys.
yes, it was
Thank
fun.
you so much.
And everyone else, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next time on DojoLIVE.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.